Behind the screen, there's lots of questions.
Hello, Stephanie. So how do I pin? Oh, there. Okay, it's over there.
Which sutra, lady?
Pardon me?
Which sutra?
Oh, we'll be looking at in the Samyutta Nikaya. We're going to be looking in the Magga Samyutta, which is 45. I think 40. Let's see, is it 40? No, it's 45:1. And if we have time, we'll look at 45:6 in the connected discourses. Pardon me?
Page 1523.
So we can sit for a short period of time. We'll have a short period of meditation, and then we'll start the reading. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uttam dhammam sangham namasami. So welcome, Stephanie and Wani. I hope Wanti. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I don't know if you have access to either on the computer or if you have copies of your own. We're going to be reading from the Connected Discourses of the Buddha, and it's the Samyutta Nikaya. So if you look up on Sutta Central, it would be SN 45.1. So it's in the Magga Samyutta. Last week we're reading from the Satya Samyutta, the Connected Discourses on the Truths, that I'm referring to the Four Noble Truths. This Magga Samyutta is focused on the Noble Eightfold Path, which of course is fourth of the Four Noble Truths. And last week we were reading about the precipice, so this time it won't be quite a cliffhanger, but it does have two parts, like most of the suttas. And usually the Lord Buddha starts with what we should, the behavior or attitudes we should avoid or abandon, and then showing the what we should develop, cultivate in ourselves. So this one is entitled Ignorance According to Bhikkhu Bodhi. Let's see, Bhante Sujato, I'll look at that, his translation as well. He also translates it as ignorance, and Avijja Sutta is the Pali, and at the beginning of a Pali word often negates. Makes it negative, and Vijja is knowledge, and so it is or science, and so this would be lacking knowledge, not the opposite of knowledge. So it's often translated as ignorance. That's the most common way I've seen currently translated, avijja. And we do get to vijja in the sutta. It's not only about the ignorance, like I said. So
Get my computer, I could screen share. So you can see.
Screen share.
I could get my computer and screen share.
Oh, okay, sure. We're going to get another computer, and then the Bhante Sujato's translation will come on the screen, but we'll also be reading Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. And he's, both of them are amazing. Both of them have devoted much of their time to translation work, and Bhante Sujato has digitalized his translations. He's working mostly on the computer, and he's developed a system in which you can look up the Pali as we read, and the Pali and the English will be side by side or interspersed. And so I like to look at more than one. I really trust Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, and sometimes I, sometimes I argue with either one of them, the Bodhi or I'm not an expert, but I do have my opinion about the translations and what seems right to me. So it's good to kind of have a broad scope, and like English, Pali, one word will have more than one meaning. And then some people believe that the Lord Buddha uses purposefully. So he could kind of working with puns in a way, or it could be taken one way or another intentionally, that he intended the fact that the word he chose had more than one meaning. So he used it in a skillful manner, some people believe. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But then there's also just people's opinions about how it should be translated. And that's up to the translator for their understanding from their own practice too, because both Bhante Sujato and Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi are both monastics and practitioners. So they're applying what they're learning from the suttas to their practice. So now we have, coming up soon, we'll have a screen share of Bhante Sujato's translation.
Getting there.
Pardon me?
Getting there. We can
Getting
start.
there. I should keep
Very shortly.
very shortly, but it's coming shortly. And this is in the great book. It's the first section in the great book, the first chapter, the Magga Wagga. And there's 5 books in the Samyutta Nikaya. And this has what's called the Bodhipakya Dhammas in it, teachings that are aimed towards full awakening. Okay, so I click OK.
No problem.
It's come. Oops,
Right. Go ahead.
you have to mute
Go
yourself.
ahead, I do.
Okay. All right. Kanti Paramam Titika. What was the sutta number? Oh, here it is, right in front of us. Oh, you've got Bhikkhu Bodhis here.
We have both.
Oh, you have both of them.
Here's Bhante Sujato.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So we can start with Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhis, and we will just pause, I think, at the end of the first, will actually be the second paragraph, and discuss it a little bit and then go on to the next. And we'll start. Thus I have heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this, Bhikkhus, ignorance is the forerunner in the entry upon unwholesome states, with shamelessness and fearlessness of wrongdoing following along. For an unwise person immersed in ignorance, wrong view springs up. So forerunner Pubagama, it's also translated as precedes, and can be also a supporting condition. So it not only brings something up or precedes, but it also supports. So the unwise person immersed in ignorance, wrong view springs up. For one of wrong view, wrong intention springs up. For one of wrong intention, wrong speech springs up. For one of wrong speech, wrong action springs up. For one of wrong action, wrong livelihood springs up. For one of wrong livelihood, wrong effort springs up. For one of wrong effort, wrong mindfulness springs up. For one of wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration springs up. So this looks like it's kind of like a sequential one after another, but it's not quite like that. But if you have, you're lacking knowledge, or you're ignorant, and what is it that you're lacking knowledge about? And specifically, if you have Vijja, if you have right view, then you understand the consequences of your actions. Here you have he says shamelessness and fearlessness, and this has to do with Theri Ottappa. And those two words, Theri is lots of times translated as moral shame, but it also it's I've written down here something. It's internal, and it's not respecting oneself, not really thinking about what other people will think of us, and not respecting ourselves, not caring, not being a caring person. And so you're not afraid of doing harmful actions because you don't care what other people think, and you don't care for yourself, basically. You're not really respecting yourself. So this ahiri, it's ahiri. Here it is. Okay, ahiri. It's ahirika is one who is. Let's see. I can't see it with this thing in the way. Let's see if I can move this over. There it goes. There it is. You've got it. Yeah, ahirika. There it is. And here it's translated as shameless. Someone, a ka, would be one possessing that attribute. So you don't feel any shame at doing something that's harmful. And the Ottappa, that one, it's not fearing the consequences of your behavior, either karma, through your karma or kama, or you're not afraid of, or maybe you think you can get away with what you're doing. So it's recklessness, really. Like you're not really concerned about the consequences of your behavior. So this is a lacking of understanding of kama or karma, both internally and externally. So this word avijja gatasa, so it's gone to ignorance. One who's they've gone to ignorance. I like that. Say gata is gone. And And then Micha Ditti. So that's translated as wrong view, but I spent some time trying to find out. There's other translations of Micha. It's false, wrong, or untrue, and it's opposed to Sama. So rather than Samaditi, which is usually translated as right view, or understanding, Ditti is also translated as understanding. So Samaditi would be the first of the Noble Eightfold Path, but this is Micha Ditti, starting out with wrong view. So, a wrong view gives rise to wrong thought or intention. Here it's this. I've seen Sankapo translated as thought elsewhere, and there's other ways of. Do you have another translation for Sankapo? Thought, intention. There's some other ways it's translated, but resolve. Yeah, I think intention is pretty good. Thought or intention. So if the way you see things, the way you understand things, supports how you think about things or what your intentions are. And an example of Micha Sankapo would be intention of cruelty or ill will, and greed, things motivated by greed. So greedy intentions, cruel intentions, and thoughts of ill will, or I could see it, thoughts or intentions. And then, of course, then that would give rise to wrong speech. Micha Wacha. And so what we frequently, our thoughts are inner speech. And then we may be thinking something and things come out of our mouth. If we're careless, this is the thing with the carelessness, this ahirika would be, you're careless, you're not thinking, no respect for yourself, no concern about others. So what's coming out of your mouth could be harmful, cruel, and you don't care what other people think about you. And then wrong speech, wrong, unwholesome speech would give rise to wrong action. It's not necessarily sequential like that. I could be engaging in unwholesome speech because of my unwholesome actions, because I'm lying to cover up my actions. So, there's this whole feedback loop. It's not necessarily one after another, but they are all, there's that mutual supportiveness. Let's see, it's a supportive condition. So overcome by delusion, people start, their view is off, their intentions are off, their speech is off, their actions, and this is off being harmful, unskillful, unwise. And then, so you're lying to yourself as well. And then you're starting to behave in cruel and unscrupulous ways. And then you wouldn't hesitate to engage in wrong livelihood. So, it can be sequential like this. but not necessarily. They're all kind of mutually supportive of one another. But to some extent, there is some amount of sequence starting with ignorance. And then wrong effort, wrong livelihood gives rise to wrong effort. That's, wait, I didn't say me, it's a micha ajiwo is wrong livelihood, and micha wayamo. It's very funny just to be saying these, but micha wayamo is the wrong effort. It's here, it seems like this not abandoning. Yeah, I guess so. So you haven't abandoned unwholesome mental states or thoughts, and you haven't cultivated. So this, I think this is just kind of like part of the package. So you haven't abandoned or the wholesome, unwholesome, and you haven't cultivated the wholesome here. And wrong effort gives rise to wrong mindfulness. Well, I just think you're probably just lacking mindfulness. Or you could be very mindful as a thief. If I'm walking very carefully, aware of every step, aware of my hand on the doorknob, turning it very carefully, opening it up, aware of, so you could be aware of going in, aware of others, the jewelry. Yeah, so I'm joking here, but I'm sure that thieves can be extremely mindful. A cat stalking a bird, every little step. So that's unwholesome. That's an example of, and I think the military, I've heard that the military was teaching mindfulness too, for the wrong reasons. So awareness of situational awareness, but it's not really, I guess there's a certain amount of awareness, but it's distorted. It's distorted awareness. And then wrong mindfulness gives rise to wrong immersion. Micha samadhi. How can that be, micha samadhi? So you could be fooled into thinking that it's a really exalted state. It depends on how you translate samadhi. Some people translate it as concentration, but that's not the real, that's not the all of it. I think there are people that do get into deep states of meditation, and there's moral conduct is despicable, and it may be just very kind of a diluted high mental state. Does anyone else have some thoughts about micha samadhi? Or any of this? I could open it up to other people's ideas about it. No?
So I think you've explained well about wrong mindfulness. I'm not sure about wrong samadhi exactly.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure about wrong samadhi.
But what, did you have something about any of the other? That
You
we,
explained them well.
huh?
I think you explained them well, I.
Okay, all right. Samadhi, one-pointedness of mind. Yeah, you could have one-pointedness of mind. It could be coming together, but not in a wholesome way. And yeah, that says falsehood, wrongly. Oh, this one has more definitions of Nietzsche here. I couldn't find it right away. Yeah, they were separated like this. So it could be, you can be fooling yourself that you're in a really exalted mental state, but you're not. I think that would be one way of understanding it. So, do we get to the flip side? Although, let's see. Yeah. So, knowledge precedes the attainment of skillful qualities. This thing is blocking the screen. Look at this. Right here. So he translates the Theri Ottappa, the Theri party is conscience, and the Ottappa is prudence. But this is also fear and shame and fear. So there's fearing consequences, like I was saying, is the Ottappa, and the Theri is to shame. I think in this case, it's like I was saying, it's more like you're respecting yourself. You have you want to dishonor yourself by doing something that's unscrupulous. You have your motivating force is out of respect for yourself and others, and but there is a if I'm reaching for something and then I stop because I have, okay, that's not mine. And then I notice in myself, oh, I had this impulse to take something that wasn't mine. And then I feel some amount of shame, but it stops me. It's a protection. It's meant to protect the mind from harm. Your own, that's the Theri part, and the Ottappa would be, oh, that's Dhammawara's whatever, I don't know, special thing. And if I took it, she would be unhappy. She would be very sad. And I don't want to hurt her. And furthermore, if she knew I took her special thing, then she wouldn't think well of me. And so that stops me. So maybe if I'm abandoning a bad behavior that I had, let's say I had the habit of taking things, oh, they won't notice this pen is, and then it gets into bigger and bigger things, they won't notice, although they'll just, I can make up an excuse about it now that it's gone or something. So then one thing after another, if I don't have that initial boundary, then it won't stop me from doing something. I really want that. I really like that. They're gone. They're going to be gone for a month. They won't notice. I'm going to take it. Something like that. And so if that impulse comes up in me and I go, that's not good, then it stops me. So I'm just using an accent. I don't know. But so does anyone have anything further to, or questions about what's being said?
Kind of like a reflection, like reflecting on forward thinking of how that situation could play out before you actually acted out on it. Would that be considered an act of like reflecting on your behavior or a thought about your behavior?
Well,
Would that be?
it's the stereotype is meant like a barrier to stop you. Yeah, it's a boundary. So that's where the shame part would come in. It's hard to translate. There's not, in English is probably not really a good way of translating it, but it's not just thinking, oh, I'm a bad person. It's like you're thinking about the consequences, both internally and externally. First, I would be harming myself and I would be harming the other person. Or the other people, or fear of punishment is another that, and even if it's just that people would be angry at me because I did something, even if I wouldn't be, arrested or something. So it's one of the protections. And then there's this other word, kusala. Yeah. You have control of the screen. So kusala is often translated as wholesome. I don't see wholesome here. This is good, right, proper, meritorious, conducing to well-being, good, acting rightly. So there's kusala and akusala was earlier on. Yeah, entry upon unwholesome states. That's how Bhikkhu Bodhi translates unskillful qualities. The attainment of unskillful qualities. So the entry upon unwholesome states, shamelessness and fearlessness. So the fear, not fearing what's going to happen if we act upon it. So knowledge is vijja. Knowledge precedes the attainment or entry upon wholesome or skillful qualities, states. Dhammanam is states or qualities or things, but I think it's qualities seem good. And then with conscience and purity following along. That's the Haryotapa. Prudence. Yeah, he's got shame and fear. Yeah, that sounds, it's maybe hard for Westerners to relate to that. I don't know. What do you think of fear and shame? Shame and fear, does that seem like something you want to cultivate in yourself?
I think a lot of it, shame and guilt confused.
Yeah, that's good. Shame and guilt. Yeah, the two come together. But there is this, like, if you're like beating yourself up, like shame sometimes is seen as like, oh, I had that thought, and well, how could I think that I would do something that would harm Dhammawara? I'm such a bad person. Oh, it's not like that. It's like, oh, there's a simile, I think it's in the Visuddhimagga. And it's like a iron bar, and one side is iron is hot. It's a very hot iron, and the other side is covered with excrement. So the hairy part is not wanting to pick up the the Aki part. And the Otapa is not wanting to touch the red hot part. So you're afraid of getting burnt or making yourself foul. But it's like, but you don't pick up the rod. So you see the rod there and you see the condition of the rod and you don't pick it up. But it's not like I go around thinking, oh, I'm such a bad person for wanting to pick up that rod, that metal rod. No, it's not like that. So this is important, just as conscience. That's maybe a good way of translating it. Prudence. I don't know if there's another English word that would cover it, but fear of conscious of consequences. But out of respect for others, out of caring for others. But it's a boundary, like I'm saying. And then so this knowledge, the knowledge of karma. Actually, it's looked up in the notes, and the understanding is that really understanding cause and effect, but it's based on understanding the wholesome and the unwholesome. That there is wholesome, there is skillful, there is and there is unwholesome. And then wholesome can be also translated as beneficial, non-harming. But let's see, kusala, we were looking at good. Where is that? Good and kusala. I have it here. Kusala, right, proper, meritorious, leading to well-being, clever, skillful. Yeah. Where's wholesome? I think some people took liberties to say, okay, this is what I mean. Like, this is a dictionary translation, but how do they come up with the English words for things? I don't know. Anyway, so this is what's supportive. These and then the path factors in themselves are kusala. So we can continue reading. I'm going to read Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation first, and then we can come back. Bhikkhus, true knowledge is the forerunner in the entry upon wholesome states, with a sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing following along. For a wise person who has arrived at true knowledge, right view springs up. For one of right view, right thought, or intention, he's translated as intention, springs up. For one of right intention, right speech springs up. For one of right speech, right action springs up. For one of right action, right livelihood springs up. For one of right livelihood, right effort springs up. For one of right effort, right mindfulness springs up. For one of right mindfulness, right concentration springs up. So this again is sequential, or seemingly sequential, but they're all mutually supportive, and they deepen as we do. These are to be developed. The Noble Eightfold Path is to be developed. So they're you might start with there's like, it's divided into 3 sections: the Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, the Noble Eightfold Path. So the sila section is a right thought and right speech and right action, and also right livelihood would fit in there. So if you're working on those are supportive of actually right view, to understand that these are important to keep your sila, because of the karma of not keeping your sila, not keeping the precepts. So they're all kind of like, actually, it's hard to say where to, but a right view actually has to start, because you have to understand the wholesome and the unwholesome, and the roots of the unwholesome is greed, hate, and delusion. So anything acting out of those unwholesome roots gives rise to breaking your sila through body, speech, and mind. So if you're not starting with that point, you're not going to really get anywhere in your samadhi, and you're not going to be developing wisdom. So they're all mutually supportive. So I don't know, you do need to start with right view, and right intention would be abandoning thoughts of ill will, abandoning thoughts of cruelty and greed, and developing the opposite. So you would be developing, instead of ill will, loving kindness; instead of greed, generosity; instead of cruelty, compassion. So, and that would be, it takes a amount of mindfulness and right effort to abandon the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome. So the right effort's in there. And this is also mindfully, amount of awareness is needed to be able to do this. So the mindfulness or awareness of the unwholesome states, and the effort to abandon it would be the right effort, and bringing up the wholesome states, and being aware of those in order to be supportive of them. Yes, I'm going in the right direction. And so this would be supportive. All those other 7 factors or health factors support sama samadhi, or leading to sama samadhi, which in turn leads to the wisdom. So they're all true knowledge and wisdom and vision. So it seems like we're starting out here with true knowledge, but it's like it's almost, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's like kind of an upward spiral, maybe all supporting one another and developing together. So when you're developing the path, it's the mundane path, and you're like you're walking along the path, and you go off a little bit, and the Hiriyottapa maybe be pulling you back a little bit. The right effort and right mindfulness will be kind of helping. Every time you start going off the path a little bit. So that would be more of the mundane path that you wouldn't, but you're still developing along the way. You're catching yourself sooner. And then the super mundane path is that you're just really on it. There's not going to be an effort anymore. There's not going to be any wavering. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about that. can open it up for conversation. I can't control the screen here.
You want to happen on the screen?
I don't, we could go back to Bhante Sujata's. There we go. Okay,
You know what you want, I'll do it.
okay. Yeah. So, Vijagatasa. That's going to higher knowledge, wisdom. And then this is our starting point, is some amount of knowledge or understanding. So it's not impossible, because we can see the consequences of, or we can have some understanding without it's not like necessarily the always having to refrain from doing something, but we can have the understanding that something is not helpful by not experiencing the consequences firsthand. So just knowing that there is wholesome and unwholesome, and understanding what that is a starting point. Do you have a question?
I was just thinking in my mind, in society, it's almost like it's flip-flopped.
Mm-hmm.
Unwholesome is considered wholesome.
In certain societies.
Yeah. You know, like with social media, it's considered, you know, the end all be all. That's how you communicate. And the human connection isn't really, which I find more wholesome, the human connection. But you don't see a lot of that. It's different when we're in a safe place. Not that it's not safe out there, but when we're in a place here where we're all like-minded individuals. It's almost like it's flip-flopped.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone could hear that, but the idea of everything being flip-flopped in the, at least media-wise, is feeding us greed, feeding us that, you know, war is the way of the world. There's like, it's kind of certain things that we would consider unwholesome or institutionalized almost. So, and then people buy into that because that's what is a media culture is feeding us. Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit sheltered here. but yeah, intentionally so is what was I heard. Certainly.
Okay, so if I want to have a conversation with somebody, I can gauge that individual where they're at in their life and what they're interested in by looking and observing their actions. But in order to have a wholesome interaction, if I find that they're not, that for lack of a better phrase, if I find that we're not equally yoked, it's my personal choice and boundary that I set within myself to decide whether or not I want to have a conversation with that individual. Because, and I was kind of asking Kachayana about this the other day, is if I have a conversation with somebody about samsara and they don't understand, then am I furthering further perpetuating samsara. If I were to try to have a conversation with somebody who I determined wasn't wholesome, and I wanted to have a wholesome that they were unwholesome, and I wanted to try to have a wholesome conversation with them, would it be an exercise in futility for me?
That's hard to know, but I guess it depends a lot about what your relationship with the person is. Like if there's somebody like in your life, like your family, somebody that you don't want to break off a relationship with. I mean, just somebody on the street. We don't go around proselytizing and trying to, like my best friend from high school. Some of those relationships might drop away. Like my interests are different than some of my friends I had 30 years ago. And it just kind of naturally, those relationships dropped away. And then, like I'm finding my brother, I can talk to, he's like open-minded, so we'll just have a conversation, and we won't try to convince one another, but we kind of get a middle ground, a meeting ground. And there's a lot of, because he's an ethical person, so he understands the ethical part, and a lot of the view part will make sense to somebody. But if somebody's not interested in what you have to say, you probably could sense that they're not interested in it. That maybe there's no point. But if it's a family member and they're observing you and they're saying, "Oh, she seems a lot happier. Oh, there's something special about her, or something different about her that's special." Then just by your, how the path is affecting you, other people that are sensitive to it will see that, and then they may be more receptive to what you have to say. But if they just say, "Oh, she's just on this kooky fad, whatever she's doing, I don't know, cult or something, I don't know. I don't want her to tell me to give up my earrings or whatever," something, whatever it is. Yeah, so you can kind of, play it a little bit by ear, just sense how it is. And yeah, if people are just like really averse to what you're saying, there's no point. Yeah.
So the Buddha didn't try to have conversations with people that are more receptive.
Yeah, you don't have to push your way. You just, with the Buddhist path, I mean, it's more about your inner development, and then you can influence other people, and if they are receptive, then you can share. But and then there's if you're studying the suttas, you'll notice that the Lord Buddha will speak to different people in different ways. And there's different points in the path. And somebody who's leading a household life, raising children, all this, he'll speak differently to them than somebody who's a renunciate, for instance. So the emphasis on sila and loving kindness will be much more geared to somebody who's in the world. And then somebody who's taking the renunciant path, there'll be more of the, transcendental, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, but just for the more liberating aspects of it, non-self. And I mean, everybody can relate to impermanence. But and then there were some of the lay people, he did speak at a very high level, because they were receptive to it. They were able to hear it. So we're not Sama Buddhas, Sama but we can, I think we can be sensitive to where somebody is. And yeah, some of the teachings aren't appropriate to some people. It may just be lost on them. But some things that everyone can understand, like compassion and loving kindness, the Brahma Viharas, rejoicing in other people's goodness, equanimity. It's harder to, but people can understand loving kindness, compassion, the sila aspects, the ethical aspects of the teachings. So mindfulness is popular, but yeah, to a certain extent, people can understand a lot of the teachings. It's kind of a lot of it's universal. So we got through the sutta, I think. Yeah, it just ends kind of with the wholesome qualities, or the sama, the correct, true, complete. Sama is it's different than miccha, though. So, I mean, there's not amiccha. There's not. Sama is properly, rightly, thoroughly. So sama ajiva. So what you clicked on. Yeah, mine wasn't dividing the words up for some reason.
Some of the words are divided and some aren't.
Yeah, so I just not hitting on the right. I couldn't find, yeah. See, that's sama is usually translated as right. Yeah, okay. You have to just kind of click around to find the.
Yeah, I don't know why some are divided up and some not.
Yeah. Why exertion or striving. It's usually translated as effort. I guess it depends on your translator. Both Bhikkhu Bodhi and Manju Sujato say effort, I believe. Yeah. Effort. And that's fourfold, the fourfold right effort. Does anyone else have a question or comment that they want to? Something you'd like to add?
You want to explain what the fourfold right effort is?
I could explain the fourfold right effort. Yeah, I was trying to think about fourfold wrong effort, but so Vayamo. This is it says exertion or striving. That's what. But the fourfold right effort is to guard or protect oneself, one's mind against unwholesome mental states. And if the unwholesome, that's the first part of it. And the second part is if there is the arising of, you start to notice the arising of an unwholesome mental state, then you abandon it. That's the second. So I was always confused. I said, why would preventing the arising, how do you know that it's going to arise in the first place? So you can prevent it. So you're guarding the mind, protecting the mind. So I think it's if you're cultivating, this is the third one, cultivating, bringing up wholesome states, and the fourth one is maintaining and bringing to maturity the wholesome states. This is helping protect the mind from the arising of unwholesome states. Developing like kindness, and then if you're seeing, if you're aware of guarding the sense gates, that's another way to protect the mind from unwholesome states. So you're aware of what might bring up an unwholesome state through sights, through sounds. You can't prevent sounds, but I'm aware that there's a loud motor going in the neighborhood. Somebody's running their engine, and I feel a little bit of uneasiness in the body. I'm aware of my body starting to get uneasy. And then I know there's this habit of mind to start complaining that the neighbor is running their engine very loudly at 9 o'clock at night, something like that. And then I'm aware of the habit of starting to get irritated and angry at the neighbor. So you're guarding the mind. I think it almost seems like you have to know through practice to guard the mind, to protect the mind from something like that. Getting angry and irritated at the neighbor. because that's an unwholesome state of mind. But just I'm protecting the mind by being aware of I'm starting to see a little bit of complaining starting to rise in my mind. And then I say, okay, when I start complaining in my mind, then I start getting angry and irritated. So that's an unwholesome mental state. So I think the states are different than just like some thoughts starting to emerge. It becomes a whole full-blown state when I'm like angry and irritated. And then I'm perpetuating it by saying, oh, why is this person always dying? I thought, looking at my clock, it's 9 o'clock. They're doing it every night. Why are they doing that? Something like that. And I'm going to go out and tell that so-and-so. You get into a rage. So this is perpetuating. This would be I think that would be the Micha Wayamo would be the first not being aware that I'm starting, the body is getting a little irritated because of the sound. I could say, oh, awareness of the body being irritated by the sound. And this is a physical reaction to sound, right? But then I start complaining in my mind that I'm not, but if I'm not aware of all that process, and then I just let it happen, and then I start festering and perpetuating it, that's the Micha Wayamo. So there's the guarding and the abandoning. This is guarding against unwholesome states, abandoning or arisen. So I notice the irritation and the complaining in my mind, and then I abandon it as quickly as possible. I say, oh, there's that complaining mind again. I'm going to let it go. I know I'm going to get angry because I'm going to just start complaining. And sometimes I notice that during the day, I might be complaining about everything. The chair is not in the right position. The plants didn't get watered, whatever. I just look around the, picture on the wall is askew. And there's everything. And then I'm in a really grumpy mood. And then someone speaks to me, and I don't speak kindly to them. So if I'm not aware of that, then I'm not guarding my mind and I'm not abandoning. So that's the first two. And then the cultivation of the bringing up the wholesome, the unarisen wholesome states, you bring those up. So the opposite of anger and ill will would be loving kindness. So I notice that I'm complaining about every little thing, and then I've been abandoning them, but I'm still kind of in a grouchy mood for some reason. And I go, oh, okay. Start having loving kindness and compassion for myself. Some reason I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Everything that anybody does or says or anything that's a little bit out of order is just getting on my nerves. So I might even be out of kindness say to my friend, I'm sorry, I'm kind of in a grouchy mood today. If I might need a little space, or I don't know what's going on. But forgive me if I act grouchy around you, or if I've been grouchy with you today. But then I can start cultivating loving kindness and compassion towards myself, towards others. So that's an example of a wholesome mental state that I want to bring up. So I might say phrases. Is one way people start cultivating loving kindness. And then maintaining and bringing to maturation. So that would be, so bringing up the wholesome and cultivating it. This all kind of blends together, though. It's, they have it in 4 segments, but then, once you intentionally brought up the wholesome state, then you want to protect it, you want to nurture it, you want to bring it to maturity, you want to maintain it. So instead of being grouchy all day long, I want to be bringing up thoughts of loving kindness. I might be saying phrases in my mind, starting with myself and then extending to other people. So that would be the 4th, bringing to maturation. It's like a abundant, exalted, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. It's just like perfected loving kindness that's wouldn't even take much effort. It's just there. It's just very expansive, inclusive, joyful. So that's according to the Noble Eightfold Path, that right effort, or Samma Vayamo. And you need a mindfulness, awareness. This is supportive. Actually, these two are mutually supportive, the right effort and right mindfulness. And sometimes it's hard to even distinguish Samma Sati. Here it's translated as right memory. That's really interesting. That memory is an aspect of sati, certainly. It's an older translation, or where the word actually comes from, but you might remember to be, your memory is the remembering that this is not what I want to be engaging in. I might remember that this is what I do want to cultivate, or remember sati, recollecting qualities that are supportive of loving kindness, remembering phrases, remembering teachings, remembering when to apply it. Remembering things that were teachings that were given long ago and how to apply them. Maybe how to apply them would be the right effort. But do you have any thoughts about sati and Vayamo,
Uh,
differentiating them, how to really just,
Well, right, you need mindfulness to be able to apply yourself well, but the effort is yeah, it's like the mindfulness guides the effort. And is based on the knowledge and right view and all of that. And then the effort is, where you're actually like putting in energy to apply what you know from your view, from your mindfulness, and so forth. There's the metaphor of the wheel. So let's see, my favorite. So the hub of the wheel is right effort.
that's the rim.
I mean, sorry, the rim, yes.
The rim is the right effort.
The outside.
Yeah, the
Use the wrong
outside.
word. The outside of it is the right effort. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where you're, engaging with the world.
Right.
And then, let's see, it's all circling around.
There's the axle.
Yeah, the axle is right view.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hub is right mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the spokes are all the other path factors. So you have right effort is circling around with right mindfulness, and then in the very center is right view. So you have this knowledge, and then the mindfulness circles around it to sort of see it and apply it in the world, and then where it's actually hitting the road is the right effort. And it's all connected up by the other spokes of the wheel, which are the other folds of the Eightfold Path. But yeah, they're all one wheel. They all support each other. They're all interconnected. Like you can't really have one without all the others fully.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good explanation of it. Yeah, it's hard for me to, but yeah, that's very much how it is.
Like the mindfulness lets you know when you need, what do you abandon and what do you guard against, and what do you develop and what do you cultivate. You need mindfulness to notice what's going on and be able to make the effort. But also the effort allows you to keep going with mindfulness, which is a wholesome state. So they feed each other.
I don't know if everyone could hear that. Could everyone hear that? The simile of the Dhamma wheel?
That's helpful, Ayya.
I think that was a yes. So that was Venerable Kachayana talking about the simile of the wheel, the Dhamma wheel, and where the wheel engages with the road is the right effort, and the hub is the right mindfulness, and the axle is the sammaditi, the right understanding or right view, and all the spokes, including that mindfulness and effort. You still have 8 spokes on the wheel, but they all revolve and work together. So is there any questions from those in the Zoom audience?
Ayya.
Yes?
So I'm kind of wondering I'm looking at the sequence, and it starts with right view and then end in right immersion. So the goal of the path is wisdom, I believe. Is that correct if I say?
Liberation, knowledge, and vision, which leads to liberation, to destruction of the unwholesome states. So, yeah, that's a good question. So all the other path factors are supportive of Samma Samadhi, but Samma Samadhi is necessary, according to many people, for the knowledge and vision that leads to complete liberation. So to a certain extent, you have right understanding. That's a more mundane understanding of cause and effect. And I can get an idea about non-self, but I'm still clinging to this idea of self. But with the really deeper meditative states, I might be able to make a breakthrough with insight, which wisdom. So, the vipassana is a special wisdom that really sees things clearly, deeply, with right understanding. It's very deep knowledge and understanding. So it needs the power of the mind, the clarity of the mind, and a lot of letting go is necessary to get into these deeper states. So it's a gradual path, and you may have some levels of samadhi, which are supportive, but yeah, samadhi isn't the ultimate, the end of the path. I mean, it looks like it here, but this is a mundane path, and then knowledge and vision and liberation come after this.
So what I was going to ask, like in the sequence, the right view precedes by it says firm in knowledge. So the knowledge here refers to the knowledge of wholesome and unwholesome, or what is it exactly referring to?
Yes, some understanding of wholesome and unwholesome and karma, like cause and effect, Vijja. This is higher knowledge, science. But there's a sutta in the middle length discourses, it's called Right View. And it's taught by Venerable Sariputta. And he starts out with the understanding of the wholesome and the unwholesome in that teaching. And I kind of take it as foundational, that you have to have some understanding that there are consequences of our behavior, that there are actions that are, if you're acting out of greed, hate, and delusion, then it's going to be harmful to yourself and others. And if you're acting out of non-greed, non-hate, and non-delusion, like you're completely abandoning the unwholesome, then it's beneficial. So you have to have some amount of right view to want to engage in this path, to even get started on the path, to be motivated. Some idea about karma, like some idea that there's not just this lifetime, but you're pretty sure that something else is going to happen after you die. So there's going to be some further consequences, not just in this lifetime. I mean, you could be very sneaky in this lifetime and get away with things, or just because of your, wealth and political power, people get away with some really horrendous actions. But if you don't believe that there's any consequence, then it's not going to stop you. It's not going to change you from that, thinking that that's okay to do that. So you have to have some amount of right view, knowing consequences or karma. And this desire to bring up all these other path factors will come naturally.
Thank you, Ayya.
Do you have something to say?
We're over time. I had a thought about Theri Otapa, but
Oh, okay, so it's related to Hiryotapa.
well, yeah, just thinking about it, shame sounds so bad. But, and nobody wants to feel ashamed or shame others or whatever. But we also have the word shameless, which is also considered a bad thing, right? If someone's acting shamelessly, we talked about this in politics, like a shameless power grab, or or corporations are shamelessly lying to us or shamelessly polluting or whatever, right? We talk about shameless, and it's like they don't care. They're not interested in acting in a moral way. And we, in a way, we want them to feel ashamed, right? We want them to have a sense of like, oh, this is wrong and I shouldn't do it. And so we actually do have that flavor in English. And the people who don't have that sense of shame are the ones who are just kind of like, they don't care. They're not attending to the consequences. They're not paying attention. They're not caring. They're just doing whatever, right? So you have to have some sort of sense of shame, some sense of right and wrong, some sense that it matters what you do in the world and that it has consequences. Or else you are just going to be running around doing whatever, regardless of how it affects anybody else. So just that basic sense that it matters how you act, it makes a difference.
Yes.
Is kind of the starting point here. In a way,
And
that's the
yeah.
basic level of knowledge. It's just, it matters.
I think there's like wise shame. Like I could, take something that's not mine and then feel ashamed of it, that I did that, but not change my behavior. And that's kind of distorted.
Right.
But if it stops me from doing it in the first place, yeah, I think guilt, like you were saying, maybe guilt is what people get guilt and shame confused. And then, or being ashamed of yourself for something that somebody else did to you, like if you're a rape victim or something like that. I've heard of that. That's a kind of unhealthy shame that gets embedded in someone. They feel maybe it's like embarrassment, or it's maybe not a very good word for that. But I hear it in, like psychotherapy circles where you're trying to overcome this shame of yourself, but it's not the person, but maybe, or behavior, maybe a behavior once engaged in. But if you've abandoned it, then you don't need to feel bad about yourself.
Thank you, Venerable Kacha, and I think your comment is valuable too.
Didn't quite hear that. Sorry.
So somehow reclaiming the word shame in a way that's a wholesome understanding of it.
Yeah, you don't have to reclaim the word shame. I'm just noting that in
Well,
English we do have that flavor of it that's surviving and shameless. So just to sort of help us connect with it, and just connecting it back to what Duranta was saying about what is the knowledge, and it's just a very basic level of like it matters whether you act wisely or not. That's the starting point, the hint, the clue that allows people to act in a moral way and allows them to develop in a moral way. So
Yeah, motivating and informing.
I think awareness has a lot to do with it. I don't think people aren't even aware of what they do and how it affects others, how it affects themselves, and even above and beyond or beneath that or behind that is values. In order to behave and be aware, self-aware, you need to have values. You need to know what your values are. Okay. And then that leads on to what's shameful, what's shameless. how would I behave in such a fashion that it would evoke a feeling of shame, or it should evoke a feeling, or it's a shameless act.
Well, thank you for sharing. And it seems like there's another sutta that's in the same section we can look at next week. Continue this kind of conversation. And thank you, those in the Zoom audience. Thank you for joining us. So we'll close with Arhang, with the honoring the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivadin Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasa Supatipanno Bhagavato Sangha Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ayya.
You're very welcome.
Good.